Hi everyone and welcome to another video. Today I'm at Manor Park Classic Auctions up in Runcorn. Thanks very much to the Manor Park team, especially Phil for being so accommodating, inviting me up. Great location here actually. Show you all the facilities. It's really nice and light in these warehouses. Lots of space around the cars, which is great. You can see where they do the auctions behind me. And they've got lovely facilities here. Also some cars outside, which I'll show you.
I did a preview video of a few of the cars that interested me most at this auction, but today's video is a full review including many more cars, following through the auctions and seeing what they sold for. So here's a beautiful looking 911, 1988, 3.2 Carrera, Targa obviously. Looks superb in this white, the paintwork's excellent. Fuchs wheels look awesome on it. And this is an era of Porsche I really do like actually and would love to own. The trouble is they're quite expensive. Just a kind of iconic design. I suppose this is what I saw when I was a kid with this huge whale tail, which I just love. And of course so much smaller back in the day. So this is quite a high mileage car, 169,000 miles, only 6 owners though. It's got 20 service stamps, so very well looked after. And inside looks excellent. I'm afraid I'm not hugely knowledgeable on Porsches, as you might know, to say whether these are all original seats, etc. I mean, the wear on them looks extremely minimal, so I'd be very surprised if something hasn't been done in here, retrimming, etc. It's got the G50 gearbox as well, a much better gearbox, and it's guided at 50 to 55,000 pounds.
Here is a lovely looking Aston Martin DB7. This one is 1997 with only 56,000 miles on the clock, which is really very low for one of these. Obviously the 6-cylinder supercharged. This is before the V12 came in. And it's an automatic gearbox, which the majority of these are, with this matching interior. I've seen a few like this. I do love the colour combinations. Piping on the seats to match as well, and very good condition in there. The paintwork looks fairly good, except when you come down here. So this rear wing, this is a slight dent, I'm not sure if it'll come out in camera, and a kind of scrape all down here to the paintwork. It's not that deep, so that probably would come out. It's got 17 service stamps and it's guided at 12 to 14,000 pounds, which sounds reasonable. It looks like it's a pretty well looked after example. It looks like the wood and leather have actually held up much better than many DB7s. They get stored in the sunlight, you get some major deterioration issues with these. The other place to check these is in the footwell, where and this one's wet, look. You get water ingress and eventually these will kind of rust through here. There's water in there, it's damp, and that would be enough to put me off. It's a common problem, water ingress there on a DB7.
At 12,005, 13, 13 bid. At 13 back in. At 13,000, 13,000. At 13,000 I'll take 5. At 13,000 once. At 13,000 twice. Finishing done then, selling on the telephone at 13,000 pounds. Sold it, 13.
Here is an absolutely beautiful 1966 Mercedes-Benz. This is 220 SEB Coupe. Fully restored example, this. And it looks in excellent condition. Paintwork has some minor swirls, but really very good, as is the bright work. Lovely blue and grey leather interior here. Obviously some wear on the interior, but nothing bad. No rips or tears, and no particularly deep creases. Obviously you've got the column shifter in these, walnut dash, beautiful interior. Slightly untidy in there. It's also been fully undersealed, you can see underneath, so difficult to tell if there was any rust there. A little bit here. And this is only 52,000 miles, thought to be genuine. and guided at 24 to 26,000 pounds, which looks like pretty good value to me actually.
At 28.5, at 28.5 once, at 28,005 twice, finishing done then, and last chance fair warning, hammers up, away it goes at £28,500, make no mistake. Sold, 28.5.
And a very rare car here, Auto Union 1000 Estate. So these are a two-stroke engine in this. Not going to feature it, just passing by. Here's a Maserati 4200 GT, 2007. When I first saw this was guided at £15,000 to £17,000, I thought that was extremely high. That was until I saw the mileage is only 15,000 miles. And also the current vendor has owned this for 16 years, so really quite exceptional to find that with such low mileage and such low ownership. It's the Cambio Corsa, so the semi-automatic gearbox. Many people prefer the manual because there can be issues with that auto box and they're very expensive to repair. I imagine on one that's such low mileage there probably aren't such issues. The interior is in excellent condition, as you'd expect from such a low mileage car. The paintwork is generally good. Most of the swirl marks would come out. There's a tiny ding here on a front arch, a bit of a paint issue on the rear arch and on the rear quarter. They may take a little bit more work to get out, but nothing too bad. For all it's been owned for 16 years, actually the invoices from this vendor amount to only £2,500, so I'm not sure it's been serviced quite as much as some people would like. So if you got this, I think you may want to catch up with a bit of servicing, let's say, but a really rare opportunity to buy a 4200 GT with such low ownership and such low mileage. And as I say, guided at £15,000 to £17,000 probably seems about right with that in mind.
500 twice, finished and done and selling this time with the ladies bit. 13,750 online, leaving it late. That's how you make an entrance online. At 13,750 in Wolverhampton now. At £13,750. Would you like to go 14? £14,000, ladies bid. At 14,000. At 14,000 once. At £14,000 twice. Finished and done. I'm selling now at £14,000. Finished and done. Yours, 14,000.
So here's an interesting car you don't see that many of in the UK actually. So it's a C5 generation Chevrolet Corvette. These had the LS1 V8 in these, so 5.7 litre V8, 350 horsepower. This one's just been imported only this year from the US, so I don't think it comes with too much paperwork, but it's only 46,000 miles. It also comes with the 6-speed manual transmission as opposed to the automatic. This is very end of the C5 generation 2004, so quite a late model, but it looks in very good condition. Inside is worn but good condition. The outside, the paintwork is very good except for two areas, one just behind the hood and one on the rear wheel arch. They would take a little bit of sorting out. £10,000 to £12,000 is the guide price for this, so I think that represents great value. You don't really see these that cheap. Great performance, they sound brilliant. I think this has got an aftermarket exhaust on as well, so will sound even better. So yes, there isn't a huge amount of paperwork. It's got a couple of paint issues to sort out, but still could be a great buy at that price, I think.
It's at 9.5 and on sale once, twice, finished and done and set. 9.6, I tried for you online. At 9,006, 9.7 now it goes on. At 9,007, at 9,700 it's going to sell today, make no mistake. At 9,700 once, at 9,700 twice, finished and done then at £9,700 off to Lincolnshire it goes. Sold.
Here's a lovely looking 1996 911, obviously a 993 generation. Good looking cars, these 993 and the Targa top. This looks in lovely condition and a beautiful colour as well. I think these can be quite problematic on this era car. I'm not hugely knowledgeable about these Targa tops, but I have read about a lot of problems with these. Paintwork looks very good. And this is guided at 38 to 42,000. It's an automatic. So these, of course, 285 horsepower, 3.6 flat six. Looks like a very straight car. 18 service stamps, £4,000 spent in 2019, 106,000 miles.
At 32,000, would you like to go 33 anywhere? At 32,000 pounds for the first time. At 32,000 pounds. Make no mistake here. At 32,000. Provisional with you online at 32,000.
Series 1 Land Rover. This is a slightly later one, so 1953. The earlier ones tend to be slightly more desirable. 80-inch. This came from Australia, has since been fully restored. Obviously not repainted. You can see bare metal here, and on the other side I've got some remnants of the green paint here, and obviously some kind of undercoat etc. still here. Big dent in this front wing here. Looks very good inside and underneath. Well, new seats at least anyway, and repainted here by the looks of it, at least to some extent. Difficult to know whether the intention was to fully repaint this or not, whether someone just stopped or this was the plan all along. not really obvious. Underneath it looks as though it's had a lot of new parts. I don't think it's just painting, so the chassis looks good. It is painted, so can't always tell. There's some very clean oil dripping out from the front there. I'm not sure if that's engine or gearbox, but I think there's quite a lot of new parts under here by the looks of it. All parts extremely well refurbed, repainted, and those springs etc. I can't imagine they're new. They look too good.
At £13,000 is bid. At 13,000, 13,000 once. At 13,000 twice. Finished and done. We submit the bid then at £13,000. Provisional with you, 13,000, 17229, 17229. Also underbidder there as well. We might give you a call as well, so don't hold your breath there at £13,000.
So out to some of the cars outside. This 2002 Jaguar S-Type R could be a really good buy, I think. It's actually guided at £7,000 to £8,000. Personally, I suspect it may make quite a bit less than that. So this is the 4.2 supercharged AJ V8 engine in this, of course. This was the first year it was introduced. I actually have it in 2003, a year later, XJ Super V8. Brilliant engine, 400 horsepower, 400 pound-foot of torque. Mated to a 6-speed ZF gearbox. But these S-Types don't tend to get the money that the XJs do. This is really well looked after. It's got a ton of invoices and history. It's only 47,000 miles. It looks in excellent condition. I've just had a good look around. I can't see any evidence of corrosion. Paintwork looks very good. I think this is a great buy, and I think it'll probably go a bit cheaper than £7,000 to £8,000. So here's a 1978 Mercedes 280 CE, a beautiful looking design, inline 6 engine. This one has been unused since 2017 and has got some minor issues, I think, to do with washers and lights, that type of thing, noted on it as well. So it's a bit of a gamble here, but at no reserve, that's a lovely looking car, isn't it? I'm just noticing on top here there's some fairly major issue there with the fitment of the sunroof and rust around it, as you can see perhaps at that top edge. That would definitely be putting me off. You can see that doesn't fit well. I can't see any rust on this though. It looks pretty straight. So if someone's handy with a spanner and fixing electrics in particular, I think that's an interesting buy. And a very nice looking 1981, so Mark V Cortina. Beautiful colour. This is a Ghia, 2 litre, only 32,000 miles, incredibly low. There are some minor paintwork issues I can see, but doesn't appear to be anything too badly wrong with this. A little bit on top of the sunroof and the roof, you can see corrosion along the back edge of the sunroof and a bit of a ding on the top there. Yeah, it needs a polish down here. But this light green paintwork is a lovely colour actually. It's the automatic gearbox. It's got some paperwork, over the years, history, receipts and invoices, etc. 6 previous owners, and owned for about the last 10 years. They're all locked, unfortunately, outside. This is guided at £7,000 to £8,000. I think that's a little bit steep. It needs a bit of attention to the paintwork. Yes, it's super low mileage, and it looks to be in, fairly decent condition for the age, but I'm not sure it'll fetch quite 7 to 8. We'll see if I'm right. So, interesting car here. This is the Audi S8. This is a 2007 with the V10 engine. So I can't remember exactly, but I think these were 420 horsepower. This is riding on ridiculously big, obviously aftermarket, I believe, 21-inch wheels. This is a Japanese import. It's been in the UK since 2021. Doesn't really have any paperwork. There's some significant damage here. The problem with these V10s is the inlet manifold. I think it's the flaps in the inlet manifold. They eat injectors, I understand, like nobody's business. And also because of the direct injection, they do need carbon cleaning. They get very coked up. With no evidence of any of that, those are costly jobs. I would steer clear of this at the guide price of £7,000 to £8,000. With that damage on the back, I can't see it making anywhere near that kind of money. The A6s with the V10s you can get for about £5,000 now. Yes, these are a little bit more, but I think if someone's paying £8,000 to £9,000 for this, they're going to want it looking a bit better than that. Unfortunately, these things just aren't cheap to repair any longer. A lovely looking black 2006 DB9 Volante. Only 52,000 miles on this. The Volantes do fetch a lot more money than the straight DB9. This black paintwork unfortunately shows up some swirl marks, nothing major, but the lighting does show up quite a lot of swirls. Easily be rectified. Some minor damage to the wheels, but nothing major. And a bit of paintwork issue around the handle here. It's been very well looked after. 1,000 miles ago, just over a year and a half ago, it had about 8,000 spent on it, an Aston Martin dealership. Front and discs and pads all round, rear springs, front shocks and springs, intercooler pipe, loads more. Very good service history, 15 service stamps. So clearly a very well looked after car. It's guided at 24 to 26,000. Which probably seems about right for one of these with this mileage and condition. It's definitely not perfect. It's a nearly 20-year-old car. Not much wear on this beautiful light interior. Some marks on the centre console, etc., but nothing major. Yeah, nice looking car, as I say, guided 24 to 26,000 pounds.
At £19,500 for the first time. 20,000 is bid now at 20,000. Gentleman's bid is back in at £20,000. At 20,000, 20,000. At 20,000 for the first time online. At 20,000 with you, sir. At 20,000, 20,000 twice. At 20,000, finishing done. We sell left-handed. Gentleman's bid at £20,000. Sold it your way, sir.
The ubiquitous Jaguar E-Type. This is a Series 3 1971 V12. And why am I featuring it? Well, because I think these have become really affordable now. For so long they were out of reach for so many people, so expensive. This is a good example that's guided at £35,000 to £40,000. Not only is it a good example, but it's actually been subject to a full restoration. So it's had body panels replaced, it's had a full engine and other running gear rebuild. It's had a glass out full respray. I've just been around the car, the panels all fit well. The paintwork is actually immaculate. It's really excellent. The bright work is all clear and good. Interior has some wear, but is in very, very good condition. It's also had new carpets, headlining, it's got a new but period correct radio, etc, etc, new exhaust. If you can get this for £35,000 to £40,000, I think it's a lot of car for your money now. They may well drop further, but if you're an enthusiast who's always wanted an E-Type but couldn't afford one, it seems like a good time to buy.
31,000 are we finished and done here at £31,000. I'm going to give you that countdown again online at 31,000 for the first time then, at £31,000. for the second time at £31,000. Finished and done, make no mistake, hammers up at £31,000. Last chance online, Sue hovering. Once, twice, finishing done at 31,000. Provisional with you.
So here's a really interesting Ford Escort. This is a 1977. It's a 1.6 gear. And why it's so interesting is because the ultra low mileage. So this is only 13,000 miles and described as being in time warp condition. It's won multiple shows and awards over the years. 16 service stamps, but an absolute ton spent on it, restored when necessary, using refurbished original parts to keep it as original as possible. And it is in fantastic condition, it really is. As you'd expect from a show winner, I guess. And what's interesting about these cars is how much these really low mileage and excellent condition non-special versions, let's call them, are fetching these days. So this definitely isn't a bog standard car. This interior is really beautiful. Being a 1.6 gear, of course, there were a ton of different variations, 1.1s and 1.3s in all trim levels, of course. So being a 1.6 gear, it was fairly high spec at the time. But what we're used to seeing really at auctions is all of the kind of RS2000s, etc., of course. So I think this will sell well. This is the kind of car that seems to be doing quite well actually in today's market. And it's guided at £25,000 to £27,000. A lot of money, but a really rare opportunity to buy a car with such low miles and in such amazing condition with its Concours winning history. So I'm standing here between two amazing performance cars. So obviously a TVR CERBERA on my left and a Ferrari F430 on my right. This is a 2009 Ferrari F430. It's got the F1 gearbox, and I'm featuring this because the guide price is £60,000 to £70,000, which seems about right to me with the F1 box. The gated manual, of course, fetches quite a lot more, tens of thousands of pounds more. It's only 27,000 miles, so relatively low mileage. Not so much for Ferrari, I guess, but this is still the naturally aspirated 4.3 V8, of course, 490 horsepower in these. £60,000 for a fairly modern Ferrari with that kind of performance is getting pretty affordable now. People split opinions on the F1 gearbox. I actually had an Audi R8 V10 with the R-tronic box, which is a similar kind of box in that it's an automated manual. If you drive these correctly, there's not too much issue. They don't like low speed maneuvers, a lot of clutch wear, for example. And of course, people prefer the greater engagement with a manual box. But actually, they're quite good fun to drive still. You can lift your foot if you don't want the head slamming gear change on every upshift, or you can just flat shift with that box.
At 55, thank you. At £55,000 we're bid. I'll take 56 if you're coming back in. At £55,000 for the first time. At £55,000 for the second time. At £55,000, finishing done then at £55,000. We'll submit that bid for you there at...
And then a car that I've always loved and been very close to buying several times, so a TVR CERBERA. This is the 4.5, so top of the range. Of course, they had the TVR produced their own engines for the CERBERA, so the Speed 6, of course, that had many issues with the inline 6, and the V8s are, from a maintenance perspective, possibly more desirable. They did a 4.2 and a 4.5. This is the 4.5, allegedly with 420 horsepower from the factory. The 4.2, I believe, had 360 horsepower. Having said that, the 4.5 is also notoriously badly tuned from the factory and could actually turn out to have less power than the 4.2. I think the 4.5 also had thinner tyre wall, bigger brakes, slightly stiffer and lower suspension if I'm correct. So quite a few upgrades. They also came with the Hydrotrack, which I think is a viscous limited slip diff at the rear, weighing roughly 1.1 tonnes and with 420 horsepower. And no driver aids, of course, just the famously long throttle pedal to modulate your throttle. These are an animal, absolute beast. 3.9 seconds to 60, these were quoted as, and just over, I think, 8 seconds to 100 miles an hour. So seriously fast car. There are some issues on the paintwork here. And some I spotted at the rear of the car here, for example. GRP body, of course. And the paintwork looks average. There's some swirl marks and some other marks that probably would come out okay. Of course, the door open on these, it's just under the wing mirror there. And the interior is average. Definitely worn with some marks on the leather. Would probably clean up. And of course, really distinctive dash and interior in these TVRs, particularly with these dials on the steering wheel, below the steering wheel, and this kind of central gap in here. So this particular one has done 57,000 miles. The current owner has owned it since 2018, and it's had in that time 16,000 spent on it. All kinds of stuff done. It's had the engine rebuilt, water pump, oil pump rebuild, loads of other stuff. It's also got 18 stamps in the book up to 2018. It had both outriggers replaced in 2017 and 2018. Some additional chassis work done on it when the clutch was replaced and around the engine bay, etc. This is guided at 17 to 19,000 pounds, which seems about right.
At 16,000 pounds for the first time. I'll take 250 then if you're nice and quick. At 16,000 pounds for the second time. At just 16,000 pounds, make no mistake, at 16,000 pounds. Provisional with you online at 16,000 pounds.
So I'm featuring this 996 generation Porsche 911, even though it's probably the most desirable 911 model there is, because it's crazy how cheap these have got. I think just incredible value for money now. So this one has done 108,000 miles. It's a Tiptronic rather than a manual, so the slightly less desirable, I would say, pre-PDK gearbox, of course. It's in really excellent condition. Outside, the paintwork is very good, and there's very little wear inside as well, considering the mileage and age. It's 2003, and it's got a ton of invoices and history with this, serviced only just a couple of months ago, and then 17 further service stamps. So clearly a really well looked after example. And I'm featuring it because the guide price is only £7,000 to £8,000. I mean, to get a 911 for that kind of money, I think is incredible. The flip side, of course, 996 generation, the non-Mesga engines are liable to some issues. We all know about the IMS bearing, of course, and the bore score issues, so you can't really tell, to be honest, without putting a bore scope down these, whether there are issues, unless it's too far gone that it already needs an engine rebuild. So that's why these prices are low, but if you're prepared to take a bit of a gamble on a very well looked after car, a 911 for well under 10 grand potentially seems like a great buy. So interesting car here, because this is an E36 M3, obviously, but it's a 3 litre, so not the Evolution 3.2. I haven't seen a 3 litre for a long time. Almost all of them seem to be the 3.2s. The paintwork's average. Most of it could probably be tidied up, I think. This one's got 164,000 miles on the clock, but it has had a full engine rebuild just in 2021. The cost of £3,500. It had a new crankshaft, head reworked, everything balanced, etc. The amazing thing about this is it's had 23 previous owners, which I can't believe. There's some scuffing on the wheels, but nothing bad. There are bits and bobs on this car that aren't perfect though, as you might expect with such a high mileage, high owner, old car. Nothing terrible. Manual, convertible, of course. Some wear and dirt on the driver's seat particularly. As I say, it's nothing too bad. And this is guided at £7,000 to £8,000, which seems like fair money. And probably one of the cheapest M3s you'll ever find.
At 6,007 for the first time then. At 6,007 for the second time. At £6,700 now. At 6,007, hammers up, away it goes with you online at £6,700. Provisionally just online at £6,700.
Featuring this Mark 1 Audi TT, 3.2 V6, so fairly rare these, 250 horsepower. This is a DSG 6-speed auto. It's in okay condition. There's a bit of paintwork issues. I think most of that would actually buff out, but these are now starting to become fairly cheap. I saw one the other weekend, I think 46,000 miles, one keeper, and it sold for about 9,000. Guide price on this is 5 to 6,000. It's done about 96,000 miles, 10 service stamps. I reckon that's a pretty good buy at 5 to 6,000 pounds. Great fun. It's also the convertible. Apparently the roof is working well, so fairly rare to see these now. Could be a good buy. So here's a really nice looking Jag actually. I've got my eyes on this because it's no reserve. This is a 1990 XJS, obviously it's the 3.6, but it's also with the rare 5-speed manual Getrag gearbox. This one hasn't been used much since 2013. It comes from a collection, but you know, remarkably little rust on this around the sills and arches. Looks really nice. And there's a slight, I can't get in here, but there's some slight marks on the driver's bolster, nothing major. I love the colour. And actually the 3.6, slightly less powerful I think than the 4 litre and obviously the V12, but with the 5-speed gearbox as well, these were actually pretty much as quick, if not slightly quicker than the older V12s with the 3-speed auto. In part because you've got 5 speeds, and obviously in part because that engine is so much lighter than the old V12s. Yeah, lovely condition. As I say, no reserve, I think 87,000 miles, 85,000, sorry. I may well bid on this. It's not perfect round here actually, looking a bit closer. Tiny bit of rust coming through here. But as a no reserve car, you know, those wheels, no corrosion, it looks pretty good. So here is one of 2 Audi S2s. This is a 1991. It's done 150,000 miles. These are usually high mileage cars, but really desirable now. This one actually looks possibly slightly better condition than the one that's guided higher. This one's guided at 12 to 14,000 pounds. It's only done about 2,000 miles in the last 9 years, but it does have 21 service stamps, so it's clearly been very well looked after. The paintwork looks good. No obvious signs of damage, although I can now just see on the second time round some corrosion poking through on this arch, some bubbling of the paint as you can see. Otherwise a very straight looking car. The other Audi S2, I think I was wrong actually. I think this one is also guided at 12 to 14,000 pounds. This is a 1996 with even higher mileage, 180,000 miles. Of course, these were 4-wheel drive, 6-speed gearbox, and the inline 5 turbo engine, 2.2. I did see some bits of rubber trim sticking out of this earlier. It's since been moved, and those have been hidden away. There is a flat tyre, which I'm guessing is a real flat, given how flat it looks, unfortunately, but not necessarily an issue there. This also comes with a really amazing service history, 19 service stamps. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with the paintwork, but it does look like it could be do with a bit of a detail or a brighten up. It just looks a bit dull. Oxblood leather inside, which is really good looking. Rear seats up. I'm not sure whether that's potentially an electric issue or some other issue there. And as I say, this is guided at 12 to 14,000 pounds. So another bit of a wildcard one here. This is a 2006 Bentley Continental GT. W12 engine in these, of course, 200 mile an hour pretty much car. And they're just incredible value for money compared with what they cost new. So this would have been roughly £130,000, I think, back in 2006. Now guided at 8,000 to 9,000 pounds. It's actually only 77,000 miles, which is pretty low for one of these. It's got 10 service stamps. It's been serviced just 2,000 miles ago. So quite well looked after. It does have some aftermarket additions. I think it's had a roof wrapped, for example, and some other bits and bobs. So that may detract from the price and why it's guided so cheaply. There's some minor paintwork issues as well, a bit of flaking around here around the Bentley badge. But if you want a cheap 6 litre W12 engine £8,000, I mean, that's incredible value. And this is in quite low mileage. If you can put up with those defects or rectify those, you've got a very cheap car.
So this was my first time at Manor Park. I have to admit I was slightly wary about how it would be, just because it's another kind of industrial estate warehouse auction site. Nothing wrong with that at all, but they're not always the most inspiring venues. But I've actually come away really impressed with Manor Park. They've made the most of the facilities they've got. In fact, they were telling me they're going to put in a mezzanine level in one section of the warehouses to create some extra space, another level. But they lay out the cars really well. As I said before, a lot of space around the cars, which I really like. I think personally is quite important to properly view the cars rather than having them crammed in. Surprisingly light and airy in here. They've got great facilities, a really friendly bunch of people, very knowledgeable, very helpful. So yeah, come away really impressed. One other thing I'd say, quite a good cross-section of cars, perhaps not so many on the kind of Concours, very high-end cars. That's not to say there aren't good quality cars there, there absolutely are, and a great range. They also have some fairly cheap end cars, I would call them, you know, cars with bits of patches of rust, etc. Now, I know not everyone likes that. Personally, I don't have an issue with it, and what I would say is, as long as there's very honest appraisals of those cars, then that's absolutely fine. If you watch Manor Park's videos, which they do, Paul Cowland goes through all of the cars one by one. He's very honest in his appraisal of them. You know, if it needs a bit of paint here and there, or there's a rust spot, he'll tell you that. So, you know, if you're interested, really good to watch their videos because it's extremely thorough walk around and very honest appraisals. I actually bid on a few of the cars here, the TVR CERBERA, the XJS I showed you, and the Bentley as well, but I didn't get any, maybe next time. So yeah, great day out, and I'll definitely be back up at Manor Park.